Okay, I'm going to show you the student word test individual recording sheet for students in grades K through 2. So imagine that we're reading with a student named Sam and he is a first grader. When a student is a first grader or a kindergartner, you begin with the beginning word list. If a student were in second grade, you would start with list or level 1. But he's a first grader, so we're going to be starting with the beginning word list. This is a document that you use to record what the student says, whether it's correct or incorrect. So imagine that the student, Sam, were to read the word me correctly. He also read the word I correctly. He read the word can correctly, but when he came to the word to, he said toe. When a student makes an error, we actually need to write out what the student said phonetically so that we can tell exactly what came out of their mouth. And what's important here is that you know what the student said, so use notation that you will understand. So imagine that the student said toe. When he came to the word my, he said my's, for example. Imagine that he added an ending that wasn't there. Adding extra endings onto words is an error. Omitting endings on words is an error too. So if the word were taken and he didn't make the N sound at the end of the word, that would also be an error. So I've shown you two types of errors, one where they mispronounce the word, one where they add an extra ending. It's also an error if they completely refuse to read the word, and I like to show that with just a line, that they refuse to read the word because it's quick. If a student were to read a word incorrectly, like if they read the word in, and then they actually said on instead of saying in, but they eventually corrected themselves, self-corrections are not errors, so you would not want to mark that as an error. You would want to mark that as the fact that they got the word correct, because eventually they did arrive at the correct answer when reading that word. When you're doing this, you never want to prompt, coach, or ask students to repeat the words unless they were mumbling or they were too quiet for you to hear them. You just want to let them progress through. You also never want to tell a student a word. There are no tells. So if they're asking you to tell them what a word says, just ask them to move on to the next word. Then when the student has read all the words in that list, you're going to tally how many they got right or correct down here at the bottom. If a student gets 16 words correct, 17 words correct, 18, 19, or 20 words correct, then you would move on and have them read the next list. If they got only 15 words correct or fewer than 15 words correct, then you would stop and you would use the chart at the bottom to determine what level of text you would start reading with that child. Now I'm going to show you the portion of the word test that the student will actually see. So again, we're reading with Sam and he's a first grade student, so we're going to hand him the beginning word list. You do actually want to hand the list to the student or put the list in front of the student because they should be the ones touching the list, and you want to give them an index card that they can move down to keep themselves on track with the right word. Because there are two columns of words, I want to recommend that you put a sticky note over the second column, because if the student were to read across, that would be hard for you to record on your recording sheet because the recording sheet goes in order of this side and then this side. Okay, so you've given this to the student and you're asking the student to read. There is very specific language that you need to use. It's scripted for you, like so many things in Fountas and Pinnell. It's completely scripted, and what you say is, I want you to read some words. When you come to a hard word, try it. If you cannot read it, go on to the next word. I'll be making notes while you read. Start here. So you would ask the child to start here and read, and then as the student read each word, you could just move ask the student to just move the index card down as they read each word. And again, you're just taking notes on the recording sheet that we showed in the last video. Again, don't prompt or coach the student in any way unless, of course, you can't hear the child because of their volume or because they're mumbling, and then you can ask them to say that word again. Okay, I'm going to show you the little handy chart that tells you which text level you should be reading with a student based on their word test results. So we're looking at a first grader, Sam, a first grader, and he read the beginning level list, and imagine that his score was 15 out of 20 on the beginning level list. We come down, we look under the heading of beginning, and we look at a student who missed between 11 and 15 words. So we're going to start with a level A text with that student. If he had read 16, 17, 18, 19 or 20 of the words correctly, we would have handed him the level 1 list, and we would have charted his progress on that list. And then if he had had more than 5 errors on that list, we would have used this portion of the table, and so on and so on.